and I want to make a different video today. There's something that has been on my mind probably for all of my life. So I want to start by going back to when I was a child. From as early as I can remember, I've always wondered what the hell life is about. I've never, ever understood it. Not ever. When, I don't know how old I was, but from as young as I can remember, as I said, I've been always looking at people, the way that they are, and finding the incongruency with the way that they presented their energy and yet who they were actually describing themselves to be. What I mean by that is I'd meet somebody and then I'd think they're lying, they're not telling the truth, the words would come out of their mouth and what they would be saying wouldn't match what I call their frequency was. So I was quite baffled by that. And on top of that, when I grew a bit older, I would ask lots of questions like all children do. They all do it, don't they? And they keep getting the same answers, I don't know, or, just kind of like whitewash, because I'm sure many of you have also asked those questions in the past. But for example, one of them was about the economical and the financial systems I could never understand. So I'd ask the question, who created the money and who decides where it goes? And I remember like getting answers like, well, it's the banks. I was like, okay, so who's created the banks? What's behind the banks? And who says that they can create this money? I couldn't understand how people, whoever these people were, that they could create money and then decide, how much they were going to print or where it was going to go to. And obviously later on in life, I was told, this is the way it works. You go to work, you earn some money, and it pays for you put it in the bank, and then it pays for your bills. And so there's this kind of loop. And I always thought to myself that, amongst other things, was complete and absolute ludicrous. Not that I had to work, but the way that it was all set up. It's like, but I don't want to do that work necessarily. And even, that's for somebody who knows what they want to do as a job, for example. Or if you don't know what you want to do for a job, you're kind of like, you have to go to work and you have to pay your bills. And, there's not really enough left at the end unless you're one of the lucky ones. And what I mean by the lucky ones is what we all heard as, from young. Well, if you are born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or your parents have got money, or, you've inherited money. But it was always this kind of like divide, like some people have got money and some haven't. So then I spent the next well, how did they get their money? And how do they keep their money? And of course, these are all questions as a young child growing up, just some of the questions. There were many, many others, but basically around money. How do you get money? And because ultimately what money meant from a child's point of view, as I was looking at it, is, well, you've got to do this stuff that you don't really want to do just to pay some bills. And then that's it? That's your life? And then you wonder why everybody grows up feeling depressed, and they're working really hard, and then they get health issues, or they, they're in job for years and years and years, and they don't want to be in it, and then suddenly the company goes bust, and then you're left with your savings, and then you're living in fear because you haven't got, am I going to have enough for my retirement? And then when you retire, you're so knackered that you drop dead. We all know that has happened to someone, whether that's someone directly or someone that we know of through someone. And it's like, really, is that what it's all about? Is that what this life is about? Well, as a child, I thought it's not meant to be like that. It's really, really not meant to be like that. I believe, and I had lots of beliefs, and I'll go through some of them later as I discuss other things. But there was like, it doesn't have to be difficult and it doesn't have to be hard. And we didn't come here for that. So I really, really struggled as a child to be brought up in a local area in Southampton with my friends around me. There wasn't a lot of money. My parents worked really hard. They worked all different hours, doing different jobs. My mum worked. So I was brought up, with working parents, with my two brothers, and basically there was always this kind of, you've got to work hard, because if you don't, you won't achieve what you want. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, that's the way it is. As you get to a certain age, you just get on with it. So I got my first job. And in fact, my first job was, I was about 13, 14, and I went to in those days, they were like called Clements, these corner shops. There were Sperrings and Clements, and, they're like your local corner shop, a chain, a bit like our Tesco Express now, I guess, for those that aren't old enough to know what I mean. And I stacked shelves, and then when I was old enough, I was allowed behind the till. So, I basically, did the till as well as stacking shelves. And I didn't give it another thought. I didn't mind doing it, and I still don't. I'm still, that's kind of inbred in me, I guess, that, to work hard to get what you want. But it never, ever felt like it was a choice. It always felt like you have to do it, or there's never enough. There's always this shortage. There's, you're never going to get what you want unless you kind of like put a lot of effort into it. So I spent my life doing that. I then got my first job, and right up until my early 20s, I always had at least 2, sometimes 3 jobs. So when I was 20, I came out to New Zealand, and back in those days, it was, quite a long time ago. And I saved up that money, and I flew all the way out here, because I'm now in New Zealand. And I stayed for 6 weeks, and I was going to stay here, but I didn't. I went back to the UK, and I carried on working hard. That's what I did. And then I saved for a car, and then I saved for a house, deposit on a house. And I did all what I call the usual things that, as I said, was kind of inbred in me. That it was just society. This is the way it is. Now, as I said, there's nothing wrong with that. And I've enjoyed my life. I've enjoyed the things that I've done, and I'm really grateful for that. And yet there's this belief of not just about the financial system, but about so many other systems. So as I said, lots of questions like, who are these bankers, or who are these people that tell us what we can and can't do? And it's this, who's at the bottom of all, who's decided this? Because it shouldn't be like this. I've always had this inbuilt thing inside me that says, I want it another way. I want it to be easier, not just for myself, but everybody. Then you look around, and then you're told to feel grateful because you've got a job. Yeah. And then you're told to feel grateful because you've got a roof over your head. And then it was very much blasted on the TV, and you see perhaps the Ethiopians many, many years ago, that they were starving. And the whole of me would say, well, why are they starving? There's enough food in the world. We produce enough. So why are these people starving? I could never understand these things ever. I then found out there was mountains and stockpiles at the EU, I think it was, or whoever was, stockpiling butter, and it was going rotten. And it was like, well, why is that not being sold, or why is that not being given to the people that need it? So basically, I've never understood who's controlling it, who makes these decisions, and instinctively things like charities. Now, I'm like most people. I'm a very charitable, kind person. I want to share. So whatever I earn, I'll give a percentage of it in some way to somebody. So I would give to charities, and I take all my things that I didn't want to charity shops, and I'd go on sponsored walks, and give all this money over that I'd raised. And I don't know what point it was, but I suddenly thought, this doesn't feel right. If there's all these charities and there are loads of them, and they're all getting all this money that's coming in, where's this money going to? because there's still, let's take one of them, the Ethiopians, for example. They're still starving. So why is that so? Why are they not getting the money that I've raised, that all these other really beautiful, well-being people are spending their time and their energy to create these resources, and then these people aren't getting it? I could never understand it, and that really upset me. So there I am looking at the world thinking I've got to work hard, and all these other people I know have got to work hard. And then it's like, okay, so you have children, and your children, they want to go to university. So you're working really hard to not just maintain your home and their life, but you want the best for them. And told, right, okay, so let's get them into university so that they can have a good career. And if they don't, they're on the scrap heap, aren't they? They're not, they're not going to get anywhere. They're not going to work really hard. And then you think about your own life. And in particular, I didn't go to university. I did go to college, and it was great that I did. So I kind of had that, I went to college, and I had a well-paid job, and I was always in the business side of things, which I really enjoyed doing. And then it was like, but your children go to university, and now they've got this massive debt. And it's like, so they're burdened with all this debt. And I've always thought, why can't we just wipe off the debt of the world? When you hear that countries have got billions of pounds of debt, why can't these things, why do they accumulate? If these people that create the money, that print this stuff, and then the people that receive this money, and they put it in bank accounts, and then you hear when the Icelandic thing happened and the volcano and the ash went up, that all these banks, these charities, should I say, lost millions, and some of them in cases I think it was billions, of pounds or dollars or whatever it was. It's like, hang on a minute. It doesn't take much to start asking questions. So what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter what your original thoughts were when you were young, whether you question those things or you didn't, but surely as you get older, and whatever age you are, don't you question that, why was there millions of pounds sat in these charities' bank accounts in Iceland when there's people starving? It's just one example I keep picking on, but there's so many. There's homelessness. Oh my God, the list is endless, isn't it? I could go on about all the people that need help. So what's that about? And it made me really angry. It made me really annoyed. I was like, so hang on a minute. So it started bringing up all this stuff from the past. Well, who's controlling all of this? But humming alongside all of that, always for me, from a really young age, was, why is this world not more loving? Why is it not more peaceful? Why are people not sharing more? Why are people lying to themselves? And I could never understand it. Not fully. Really didn't. So it wasn't until I was, a little bit older, and I started to look at, because by the way, as you know, I went down the job system because that's what I had to do. I had to get a job. And I was told at my age that it was, I could go into retail, I could go into a factory, or I could go into an office. Those were my choices. Now, as we all know, when you're sort of 14, 15, and even 16, do you know what you want to do? No, you don't know what you want to do. You haven't been nurtured. And that was the other thing I could never understand, the school system. You've got to go to something, you have a teacher or teachers who are sharing their wisdom. But what was really clear to me is that a lot of them didn't know what that wisdom was. They were just doing a job, and that also didn't seem right. And the ones that weren't particularly good teachers really didn't care. They just let you get on and do whatever you wanted. And it was like, where's the passion? If somebody's doing a job, then aren't they supposed to be passionate about that job? No, probably not, because they were doing something that they were probably told, you can do this, you can do that, or you can do the other. Which one are you going to choose? So in all professions, there are people obviously that love their work. I'm not saying there isn't, but majority of us, I'm talking about the masses. In this instance, I'm talking about the masses. We're just programmed to believe that we've got to earn money, and we probably follow in the footsteps of our parents because that's what we chose. I mean, I did. I followed in the footsteps of my mother, who was into office work. So I looked at the other choices and thought, well, they're not really up my street, you know. So I'm going to go and do this. And I think that's a majority for most people. Some people are born with an ability and a skill that's kind of inherent within them, and they perhaps they express it, and they love it. And I know that happens. I know many people that have that. But as I said, for the majority, that isn't the case. And so if that isn't the case, what are the rest of us doing? We're all going to school. Look at the school system in itself. It accounts for academics. If you can't keep up with the French lessons, or you can't keep up with the maths, then you're graded and you're put into a set or a class. And then you've got, if you're not one of those brainy types that knows it all, then you are labelled. You're labelled whether you're brainy or you're in the bottom class. Now, we know as with intelligent people that we function in many, many ways, but the school system doesn't cater for that. It doesn't cater for the creative, artistic type. It doesn't cater particularly for the sportsman. You get in my grandson's school, he's in year 3, I think it is, and they do an hour I think twice a week or something, a sport, and it's seasonal, which, okay, fair enough, maybe it is seasonal, but there are so many things that it doesn't cater for. And the whole, you've got to learn maths, you've got to learn to read and write. It's like, what is all that about? Really, what is it all about? What is the use of it all? So for many, many years, I've always thought, well, why don't we cater in schools, the education system, to be around the individual, what the individual wants. Let's ask them what they want, and then let's teach them the basic, what I call life skills. And basic life skills for me are things like everybody should understand astrology. Astrology is your map, your blueprint. It's from an astrological point of view, is where those planets and those things make up the qualities, and things like, if you look at your birth chart, if anybody's ever had it done, a professional astrologer will say to you, at this time of your birth, these things happened. Okay, this is what makes up your map of your blueprint. And then looking at your blueprint, they will say, these are the things that you could work towards. These are going to be your strengths, and these are going to be your weaknesses. So, you can see where having that map then says, okay, this is what is going to be good for you. These are some of the things that you're here to experience or improve upon in this lifetime. And it's not that it's bad, or it's not that it's good. It's just, these are the things. So this is the map. This is this is the territory that you're going to journey throughout your lifetime. So for me, that's really important, having that astrology as a basic norm. So it enables people to know themselves, begin to know who they are and what their place is in this world. Because how many people come into this world and they spend their whole life like, who am I? Why am I here? Well, that would immediately answer some of those questions. So that makes sense. So I could never understand why that wasn't something that happened. The other thing that I could never understand is the financial, as I said, I've already brought it up, the financial system, money. Okay, so we're not taught, actually, we can count in maths, we can do pie charts and equations and God knows what, that went right over my head. As I said, I wasn't academic at all in that way. So kids struggle, and they've got to learn this stuff, and they've got to do their tables. Now, I'm not saying there's not a place in all of that, but the way that is taught is very linear, isn't it? It's just one, pathway straight the way through, and if you don't fit on that pathway, you don't exist. So therefore, you can see why anxiety, separation, and lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem is built up from a really young age. And of course, then we've got you've got to work really hard, you've got to do really well at school, because if you haven't, you're never going to aspire to anything. And then you've got to get to uni, because if you don't, you can see where this mentality, where we've all been programmed to follow this particular path in life, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. So the school system, if we taught how to manage what money is, how to manage that money, how to share that money, how to save that money, how to the value of that money, so in real life experiences, wouldn't that be an amazing experience for our children to go to school and learn? Wouldn't that be a wonderful expression so that they understand the value of things? We live in this chuck away society. I mean, Christ, we haven't even got onto the plastic bottles and the plastic in the seas, have we? The environmental side of things. That wouldn't be existing. But for all that I'm talking about, and I'm going to do this in stages rather than just do one long talk, I'm going to break it up a bit, but I just wanted to highlight the madness of the world that we live in. Now, I don't know if you yourself, remember from a young age questioning this stuff or thinking that it was mad, or you've just gone along with it. Most of us have just gone along with it. But I believe we're being given an opportunity now with what is happening to finally break these patterns, break this spell, as I want to say, and shake up this system. It's dead, it's old, it's outdated, it's outmoded, it's just not working. There's so many new ways that are coming in. They are already happening. This is part of what this COVID-19 block's been all about. When it first, I knew something was coming. I didn't kind of know exactly what it was, but I had a vision of this many, many years ago. And I remember feeling a bit scared about it and thinking, oh my God, what does it mean? Because I saw, people in white suits and the masks and all of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got this vision. And I don't know how long ago, but more recently in the last few years, I've been thinking, I can feel it coming. There's so many positive changes. And throughout my life, I've been seeing those positive changes. And then suddenly this breaks out, and I kept saying to people in my sessions with them, I can see a lot of real big gaps, quiet periods where you're not doing much. And now I can see why. But the reason for saying about all of this is it's a positive thing. And this is what I want to get across in what I'm trying to share with you here. I've never been so open. I've always wanted to talk about all these things that, I haven't. And everyone says, oh, you're so positive and you see everything positively. Yes, I do. And thankfully I do, for a reason, because I always know that if there's something that is what we call bad or negative, it's a highlighting because there's something really positive for us to look at. So right now we got lots and lots of positive reasons and to stay optimistic, to know that things are changing for the better. Through change, it means breaking down of like something old or letting go, and it can be a bit scary. I understand that. I know that whenever we go through a major change, and this isn't just individually, we've been going through the individual changes for many years now. We've been, going through our own inner awakenings, and that has brought many changes for many people on so many levels. I will talk about those in the next part. But also globally, this is a time of now global change. The age of Aquarius is well and truly here. It's an age where we see humanity as oneness of what it truly is. And in order for that oneness to be fully present and us to be aware of it, it means that we have to look at what has been happening and the way it has and be willing to let that change happen without fear. Because we've been living in fear for way too long. Way too long. We've been afraid to step out of the system or speak up. We've not known how to say, this is ridiculous, but it's true. How many of us, like with the charities and all those things that we've been given to, and now realizing that they're all fake, that they're run by people who have been stealing and raping that money from people who have worked their guts out for a good cause. It's beyond me to think that humanity, that there are people that have been doing that. But the fact is, and the truth is, it's been happening. It's been happening right under your noses. And I know we don't want to look at it. I know we want to kind of bury our heads in the sand. We want to wake up tomorrow and go, oh, you know, it was a bad dream that I had and everything's really back to normal. There is no normal. Not in the way that it was acted out previously. And that's what it was. It was acted out. We were acting out some kind of crazy kind of world that is not real. It is not real. It's an illusion. It's an absolute illusion. And we were the players in that illusion. So it's time now for us to see the positive in the changes that are happening and then decide for ourselves, what kind of life do we want? What kind of world do we want to live in? Now, I used to fantasize about this. I fantasized time and time again. When I say fantasize, I used to dream and imagine and create scenarios like this one, where everything was collapsing, where the truth would come out, where the bad stuff that's been going on, I don't even want to pass it through my lips. But for most of us, it's like, this woman's mad. She's completely mad. She's a conspiracy theorist. She's like everybody else. She thinks that, that there's these devils and demons that have been doing this stuff and it's not true. Well, guess what? It is true. Your worst fears and your worst nightmares, they've been happening. But we don't need to focus on that anymore. We need to let it go and we need to start creating anew. So in the second part of this video, I am going to start talking about that new system that all of us who have agreed to come here and be on this planet at this time, and you wanted to, you really did, and I'll talk about that as well. You wanted to be here, you wanted to be part of this because it's huge. It's absolutely huge from the perspective of a human being, from the perspective as a soul, and from the perspective of source, divine self, and God. We wanted to be here to experience this.